Hello, everyone, and welcome to Speak Up. I'm Ryan, your host, and today we're talking about a topic that impacts every area of our lives: interpersonal skills. Now, whether we realize it or not, the way we connect with others can either lift us up or hold us back. Effective interpersonal skills shape our relationships, determine how well we collaborate, and can even affect our personal happiness. Today, I'm excited to break down what these skills actually are, why they matter, and, most importantly, how we can strengthen them in our everyday lives.
Absolutely, Ryan. And hi, everyone. I'm Priya, a relationship coach, and I have to say that mastering interpersonal skills has a transformative effect. Many people think of these skills as just surface-level communication tools, but there's so much more. We're talking about active listening, clear communication, building trust, managing conflict. All the elements that allow us to connect more deeply with those around us. In this episode, we'll be sharing practical techniques for each of these areas, along with some real-life examples to show how they can make a meaningful difference in your relationships. So, whether you're trying to improve your interactions at work, with friends, or within your family, today's episode is for you.
So, now that we've introduced the topic, let's dive deeper into what we mean by interpersonal skills. These are not just about good manners or effective talking. They're the skills that allow us to connect, understand, and respond to people in meaningful ways. Interpersonal skills cover everything from listening and empathy to communication style and conflict resolution. And interestingly, even if we think we're naturally good with people, there's always room to deepen these skills. I remember realizing this myself when a friend told me I sometimes seemed distracted in conversations. It was a simple thing, but it showed me that even small adjustments in our awareness can really enhance how people perceive us.
Absolutely, Ryan. And that's such a relatable experience because these skills are often shaped by subtle things we may not even notice. I always tell my clients that interpersonal skills start with self-awareness, the ability to see how our emotions, reactions, and even our body language affect others. Self-awareness is like the lens through which we view every interaction. For example, if we're stressed, it's easy to come across as short or distant without intending to. Building self-awareness means we're better able to check ourselves before reacting or responding. I remember a time when I realized I was sounding overly critical during a work discussion because I was stressed about a deadline. That moment of self-awareness allowed me to step back and adjust my tone.
That's such a good point, Priya. Self-awareness is a foundation, isn't it? When we're aware of how we're feeling, we're better equipped to control our reactions. And it's a skill that has to be developed consistently. In my case, I started paying closer attention to how I engage in conversations, making sure I'm fully present. There was one time I realized I was so focused on what I wanted to say that I wasn't really listening to the other person. It's these little moments that remind us how powerful our awareness can be in shaping the quality of our interactions.
Exactly, Ryan. And as we grow that awareness, we can also improve how we listen to others. Because true interpersonal skills aren't just about how we talk, but how we listen. Often we're tempted to jump in with advice or our own stories, but genuine connection requires active listening. When we listen, we're not just hearing words, we're observing tone, body language, and emotion. One of the things I love to teach is listening between the lines, understanding the unspoken feelings behind the words. I once had a friend who shared something really tough, and instead of giving advice, I just listened. Later, she thanked me, saying it was the first time she felt truly heard.
That's such a great example, Priya. Listening deeply can be a real game changer in relationships. It makes people feel valued and understood, which is often all they really need. And it's not just personal relationships. This has huge implications in the workplace, too. I remember a time when one of my team members was struggling but wasn't saying it outright. By listening to what he wasn't saying, I picked up on his stress and was able to offer help before it became a larger issue. So I think that's a great place to start. Self-awareness, paired with the ability to truly listen, forms a powerful base for building strong connections.
Absolutely, Ryan. And that's the perfect setup for what we're covering next. Now that we've established self-awareness and active listening as foundations, let's move into how we can communicate more effectively, with clarity and empathy, to strengthen our relationships even further.
Now that we've covered self-awareness and active listening, let's focus on communication. Clarity is key. It's not just about what we say, but how we say it. Choosing words carefully, matching tone to intent, and being mindful of body language all matter. I once gave feedback thinking I was clear, but my tone made it seem blunt. This experience taught me that delivery is just as important as the message.
Absolutely, Ryan. Small adjustments can make a big difference, and clarity often goes hand in hand with empathy. When we communicate empathetically, we consider how our words will be received. For instance, when I had to give tough advice to a close friend, I framed it gently by saying, "I'm sharing this because I care." This balance allowed me to be honest without hurting her feelings, which is essential in relationships.
Great point, Priya. Combining empathy with clarity makes our communication both honest and considerate. We also need to be aware of nonverbal cues, expressions, gestures, and pauses, since they can convey just as much as words. I once learned this in a meeting. I intended to be supportive, but my crossed arms sent a closed-off message. It's remarkable how small details can impact how we're perceived.
Absolutely, Ryan. Nonverbal communication is powerful. Body language can either reinforce or undermine our message. A warm smile, open posture, and eye contact enhance our words, while gestures like nodding show engagement. I once mirrored a friend's relaxed posture, and it helped her feel at ease, making the conversation more natural. These subtle cues create strong emotional connections that words alone can't always achieve.
Great point, Priya. Communication becomes richer when we're intentional about our words and delivery. Empathy bridges the gap between self-expression and connection. Before speaking, I often ask, how would I feel hearing this? Especially in sensitive conversations. This approach allows for tough topics to be addressed with consideration. For example, starting feedback with, "I want to support your growth, so here's what I noticed," can make even critical comments feel constructive.
Exactly, Ryan. And I love that approach of putting yourself in the other person's shoes. Empathy combined with clarity creates a sense of safety, where people feel they can be open without judgment. And that's something we'll talk more about in the next segment, how building trust and respecting boundaries strengthens that sense of safety and deepens our relationships.
So now that we've explored the importance of clarity and empathy in communication, let's take it a step further by talking about trust and boundaries. Trust is like the foundation of any relationship. Without it, even the best communication can feel empty. Trust isn't something that just happens. It's built over time through our actions and consistency. For me, trust often comes down to showing up and being reliable, keeping our word, listening when it matters, and being supportive. There was a time when I unintentionally broke a friend's trust by sharing something he had told me in confidence. I learned the hard way that respect for others' boundaries is essential for trust. It took time, but by apologizing and rebuilding that respect, I was able to regain his trust.
That's a great example, Ryan. And I think we've all had moments like that where we realize just how fragile trust can be. Boundaries play a crucial role here too, because they're the invisible lines that define what's comfortable for each person in a relationship. When we respect those boundaries, we show that we care about their comfort and well-being. I once worked with a client who struggled with setting boundaries with her family. She felt guilty saying no, so she often overcommitted and felt drained. By helping her set clear boundaries and communicate them openly, she was able to build stronger, more respectful relationships with her family. Boundaries aren't about pushing people away. They're about making space for healthy connection.
Absolutely, Priya. Setting boundaries can feel uncomfortable at first, especially if we're used to putting others first, but it's so necessary for lasting trust and respect. And I think people sometimes fear that setting boundaries means distancing themselves from others, but it's actually the opposite. When we set boundaries, we're allowing space for both parties to feel respected and understood. For example, in work relationships, I've found that being upfront about my limits with projects has actually led to better collaborations. People appreciate knowing where I stand, and it helps prevent misunderstandings. Boundaries, when set with respect, can actually strengthen trust and make our interactions smoother.
Yes, and that respect goes both ways. When we set boundaries, we also need to respect the boundaries of others. If someone says they're not comfortable discussing a particular topic or prefers a certain level of involvement, honoring that shows maturity and empathy. A friend of mine went through a tough time, and she told me up front she didn't want advice, just someone to listen. By respecting her boundary, I was able to be there for her in a way that felt meaningful to her. It's these small acts of respect that build trust and make people feel valued and understood in our relationships.
I love that story, Priya. Respecting others' boundaries allows them to feel safe, knowing they won't be pressured or judged. And trust grows when we create that safe space consistently. In professional settings, respecting boundaries can mean giving colleagues the autonomy to make their own decisions rather than micromanaging them. I once had a manager who trusted me to make judgment calls on projects. That trust made me feel valued and motivated me to give my best. It just shows that when we trust others and respect their boundaries, we build a foundation of mutual respect that strengthens relationships over time.
Exactly, Ryan. Trust and boundaries truly go hand in hand. And when we approach them with respect and openness, we create a dynamic that allows relationships to flourish naturally. This brings us to our next topic, which can sometimes test that trust: handling conflicts. In the next segment, we'll talk about how to address conflicts constructively without damaging the trust and respect we've worked so hard to build.
Now that we've discussed trust and boundaries, let's address conflict. While often seen as negative, I believe conflict can be an opportunity for growth. How we handle it matters. I once had a heated disagreement with a colleague about a project. Instead of letting frustration linger, we listened to each other and found a solution that combined our ideas. It taught me that conflict can actually deepen trust and understanding when approached with respect and a focus on resolution.
Exactly, Ryan. Conflict can be healthy with the right mindset. It's important to separate the problem from the person. In disagreements, acknowledging the other person's perspective, like saying, "I understand where you're coming from," can lower defenses and open up dialogue. I had a disagreement with a close friend and focused on understanding her viewpoint instead of proving my point. This shift made the conversation about finding common ground, teaching me that the goal of conflict resolution should be to strengthen the relationship, not to win the argument.
Absolutely, Priya. Acknowledging someone's feelings can really change a conversation's tone. Part of handling conflict well is knowing when to step back and cool off. In heated moments, I found it helpful to say, "Let's revisit this," after we've both had a chance to think. This allows space for thoughtful responses instead of impulsive reactions. I did this with a family member during a tense discussion, and it helped us both return with clearer minds and a focus on resolving the issue respectfully.
Yes, taking a pause can be very effective. When we return to the conversation using I statements like "I feel" or "I need," instead of accusatory you statements, can help. For example, saying, "I feel unheard when I can't explain my perspective," expresses your feelings without blame, making it easier for the other person to understand you without getting defensive. I've seen this approach turn tense situations into opportunities for both people to feel seen and respected.
That's a great tip, Priya. I statements really help diffuse tension in conversations. By approaching conflicts this way, we show that we care about the relationship enough to work through tough moments constructively. People appreciate facing conflict with respect and patience. I recently spoke with a team member frustrated with their workload, and by using I statements and acknowledging their feelings, we found a solution together. It reinforced my belief that when handled well, conflict can bring people closer and build stronger relationships.
Exactly, Ryan. Conflict shouldn't be something we fear. It's an opportunity for individual and collective growth. By fostering this approach in our relationships, we create a safe space where both parties feel valued, even during disagreements. This leads us to our next topic: maintaining healthy interactions by continuously developing our interpersonal skills. In the next segment, we'll explore strategies for personal growth and how to ensure these skills keep evolving over time.
Now that we've covered handling conflict constructively, let's discuss continuous improvement. Interpersonal skills aren't a one-time mastery. They're like muscles that need regular exercise. I've found that being intentional about developing these skills makes them feel more natural in my interactions. For instance, I set aside time each month to reflect on recent conversations and identify areas for improvement, whether it's listening more actively or being mindful of my tone. It's an ongoing process, and that's where real growth occurs.
Absolutely, Ryan. I love the analogy of interpersonal skills as muscles. It really emphasizes the need for consistent practice. Feedback is invaluable too. I often ask friends or colleagues for their thoughts on how I come across. It can be vulnerable, but it's incredibly helpful. One of the best pieces of advice I received was from a friend who pointed out that I sometimes jump into problem solving too quickly instead of just listening. That made me realize I need to pause and fully listen before offering solutions. Staying open to feedback allows us to grow and improve in ways we might not notice on our own.
That's a great point, Priya. Feedback can be such a gift if we're open to it. I think another key to growth is setting specific, achievable goals. For example, if I notice I tend to interrupt others, I make it a point to practice letting them finish before I respond. Or if I realize I haven't been as empathetic in certain situations, I remind myself to consider others' feelings more thoughtfully. Setting small, focused goals like these gives us something tangible to work on. And over time, those small adjustments can lead to big improvements in how we connect with others.
Exactly, Ryan. I believe growth in interpersonal skills greatly benefits from self-reflection. Journaling has been a powerful tool for me. It allows me to reflect on both successful and challenging interactions. This practice helps me identify my patterns and areas for improvement. For instance, I realized I tended to withdraw in conversations where I felt judged. By reflecting on this, I learned to stay more open, even in uncomfortable situations. Self-reflection keeps us aware of our progress in areas that need work, which is invaluable.
That's a great approach, Priya. Self-reflection brings clarity to our growth. I've also found it helpful to observe others who excel in interpersonal skills, whether colleagues or role models. Noticing how they communicate, listen, and handle tough situations can be enlightening. I once worked with a mentor who made everyone feel heard, no matter how busy he was. Watching him taught me the power of presence and attentiveness, which I strive to emulate today.
That's a great point, Ryan. Learning from others is inspiring and provides practical examples for improvement. The journey of enhancing interpersonal skills is ongoing. There's no final destination. It's about staying curious and committed to bettering ourselves. By setting goals, seeking feedback, self-reflecting, and learning from others, we continuously evolve. This growth not only benefits us, but also strengthens all our relationships. So, as we wrap up, let's remember that every interaction is an opportunity to practice and refine these skills.
Absolutely, Priya. Personal growth is at the heart of great relationships. And by making these small, continuous improvements, we create more meaningful connections with the people around us. Thank you all for joining us today. We hope these insights inspire you to keep building your interpersonal skills and transforming your relationships.
Thanks for joining us on Speak Up today. We hope these insights inspire you to build stronger connections through small, intentional changes. Remember, mastering interpersonal skills is an ongoing journey. So take it step by step and stay committed. Keep growing, keep connecting, and stay tuned for more episodes that help you improve every relationship in your life. Until next time, take care and keep practicing those skills.